Your Excellency, welcome to CNBC. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for covering this story.
First, help me understand the scale of this crisis. What's the situation on the ground right now?
This is a crisis or climate catastrophe of biblical proportions. 33 million people in Pakistan have been affected by these monsoon rains and floods. Now, that's a number that's bigger than the population of Australia, Sri Lanka, Portugal, many small countries. And the scale of this tragedy is hard to comprehend. We've literally had our monsoon season from mid-June to late August. To put that in some sort of context, from this, we've all heard of the story of Noah, of Prophet Noah. That it rained for 30 days and 30 nights. So this is literally a climate disaster of biblical proportion.
And a humanitarian crisis continuing to play out. What is the government's current understanding of the latest death toll as it stands?
So at the moment, our death toll has crossed 1,191 people, a third of which are children. And unfortunately, those numbers are looking to rise, because now with the masses of water that have collected everywhere and the numbers of people affected, we're looking at waterborne diseases spreading. We're seeing that already in the population, and going forward, that is also one of our concerns. It's also been raised by the World Health Organization.
What is your expectation on that death toll? How much further could it rise in your view?
So I can't put a number on it. We've already crossed the death toll of the 2010 floods, which before this flood was the biggest flood in our history. And this is an ongoing disaster, and it's still it's one that can compound. So far we've experienced the rains or the floods that have come from the skies. And with the lower riparian areas of Pakistan, the southern areas of Pakistan are still bracing themselves for the flooding that is to come through the rivers from the north. And the cumulative effect of this water first gathering in the province and then going down into the sea means that this is still an ongoing tragedy.
Is it reasonable to expect that that number will be much higher than what the government is currently reporting?
At the moment, there's fears that the number will go higher. We're doing everything we can to ensure that even though our health infrastructure has been devastated, to get mobile health teams out there and set up medical camps. Even non-government organizations, charities are involved in this work to ensure that we can provide medical care to all of those who have been affected. But as I mentioned, the number and the sheer scale of the people that have been devastated by this catastrophe far outnumbers, stretches our government's own resources, our human resources, our medical resources, and that's the challenge we're facing, which is why we've launched an international flash appeal along with the United Nations for assistance from member states so that we can work together, because this is a catastrophe that surely at this time is affecting only the people of Pakistan, but it's not one of their making. Pakistan contributes, I think it's like 0.9% per capita for carbon the footprint on a global scale, but we're amongst the 10 most affected countries by climate change. The people of Pakistan at this point in time are paying in their lives and in their livelihoods for a climate disaster that is not of their making.
When it comes to the government's response, as you say, the WHO says access to health facilities and essential medicines and medical supplies is the main challenge right now. So what is the government doing to ensure that the people of Pakistan have access to those critical services?
So at the moment, our number one challenge is actually we're still in the rescue and relief phase of our operation. And our number one challenge is getting shelter, getting tents to our citizens who are still shelterless in this catastrophe. And then absolutely, going forward, the medical challenges are very severe and serious, and do not only are challenging sort of our limited resources and limited facilities, but add on top of that, that the facilities and resources we do have also been flooded, have also been damaged during this catastrophe. So while it's challenging, we're still redirecting the hospital teams into mobile units to go out into rural areas, into displaced areas, in and around the refugee camps, the IDP camps, sorry, not refugee camps, that we have established. We're setting up medical tents and gathering our resources, our medical resources, to get them out there to the people. But I want to underline the fact that no matter how much we do, given the sheer scale of the tragedy, given the sheer amount of people that have been affected, our supply is not meeting the demand at the moment.
Of course, this is a humanitarian catastrophe, but it's also rapidly becoming a financial crisis as well for Pakistan. Current government estimates put the damage bill at least $10 billion. Is that correct?
So we will only see in due time what the compounded economic impacts of this tragedy will be. Again, I want to emphasize that we're still in the rescue and relief phase. When we go forward to the reconstruction and rehabilitation phase, and once the waters and flood waters have passed, only then we'll be able to truly assess the damage that has been caused. The $10 billion figure was the estimate of the damage of the 2010 floods, but we have already gone past that mark. This is already a worse disaster than that one, so we can imagine that the scale of the damage will also be a lot more.
Any thoughts on how much higher that damage bill could go? We're talking tens of billions now. Where could it possibly go in your view? There's no telling, really.
I can't give you a final number on that. It's still an ongoing process, but considering about 80 to 90% of our crops have been damaged, and we're in the areas that have been affected are largely rural economies. This will have not only a compounded impact on our farmers, but obviously on inflation and on food inflation and such things going forward. But at the moment, we're focused on trying to save lives, save and help whoever we can in the rescue and relief phase. Going forward, we will have to assess the damage for our rehabilitation and reconstruction.
So how are you working with international partners now and aid agencies as well to get the help and financial support that Pakistan needs? What is it going to cost to rebuild, and who are you working with to do that?
So far, we've launched a joint flash appeal day before yesterday with the United Nations, and that was for about $160 million, which is obviously a very conservative estimate and about sort of the bare minimum requirements at this moment. Once we get through our rescue and relief phase, then we can have a more comprehensive assessment about the rehabilitation and reconstruction. I mean, if about a million plus homes have been destroyed, they will have to be rebuilt. Our bridges, our road networks, our small dams, everything has been damaged. So going forward, there will have to be large scale reconstruction, which will require a lot of work.
How is this aid money going to be distributed? There's growing concern among international aid agencies, but also the Pakistani public, that this aid won't be distributed in a transparent and fair way because of government infighting. Can you offer any guarantees that this will be a transparent and fair distribution process?
As far as our international partners and aid agencies are concerned, I mean, they're experts at dealing with these sort of disasters all over the world, and they have no such complaint. But of course, given the sheer scale of what you have going on, when you have 33 million people affected, when you need millions of tents, but you only have hundreds of thousands of tents, then there are going to be complaints from people who have lost everything. And no matter what they receive will not sort of seem like enough. For example, we're providing through the only social safety net program that is available in Pakistan. It's the most transparent mechanism, the Benazir Income Support Program, that provides cash transfers to the poorest of the poor women in our country. And through that mechanism, we're providing 25,000 rupees to everybody who has been affected and who is below a certain before below a certain poverty line. But unfortunately, they're not the only ones affected. What do you do about the people who, before this tragedy, were not poor, but now they are overnight? They don't have access to the Benazir Income Support Program or such easy mechanism. We have to reach out to them as well. But as I said, this is an ongoing disaster. The flood waters are still gathering, and they're still descending through my country. So these numbers will enhance, but once we have a final figure of what needs to be done, I have complete faith that we will be able to meet these challenges. We've seen how not only the provincial governments or the federal governments, but all walk of life in Pakistan have mobilized themselves to help those in need. You see the positive response from our international partners, and we look. We know that we faced devastation before, but we've come together as a nation and met the challenge and overcome, and we hope to do so again.
Just on some other foreign policy issues, international aid agencies, at least some, have asked for a relaxation of restrictions on imports of food from India, for example. Is that conversation happening? And if not, why not?
So again, we're currently in our rescue and relief phase. In that context, this conversation about whether we import or not import from India has not come up. I am again also not aware about any aid agency that has requested for any imports from India. From a foreign policy perspective, we do have challenges over there, and we can discuss those at the appropriate time. At this moment in time, we're focused on saving our people who are in desperate need of rescue and relief.
And as you continue to engage in saving lives, what is your message to the international community?
My message to the international community is that 33 million people of Pakistan are paying with their lives, with their livelihoods, for a crisis that they did not create. Our contribution to the global carbon footprint is less than 1%, but we are amongst the 10 most climate-stressed countries on the planet. We are either experiencing extreme droughts and fires, or we're experiencing extreme monsoon flooding and rain. Outside the polar region, Pakistan has the largest number of glaciers. So the cumulative effect, sort of the price tag for the industrialization of the rest of the world, is being paid for in the lives of these people you're seeing on your TV screens today. This is a challenge for the international community, that we must come together and help these people now, to give the confidence to the rest of the world, because today this is Pakistan, as the United Nations Secretary General mentioned at a flash appeal. Tomorrow it could be you. So we have to work together from today, help these people, ensure that people get the necessary relief and assistance that they need during this current, sort of as the crisis goes on, and going forward, that we reconstruct, rebuild, and rehabilitate in a way that can withstand the coming climate shocks.
And speaking of those coming climate shocks, what can the government do to mitigate the impact of future flood and weather events of this scale? And was Pakistan adequately prepared for a scenario like the one that is currently playing out as we speak?
I think that there's a lot that can be done to adapt for climate change, to reduce our carbon footprint, for example, transitioning to green energy, etc. There are infrastructure improvements that can be made in general, but nothing. There's no dam, there's no drain, there's no climate enhancing infrastructure available that can deal with the amount of sheer volume of water that just arrived from the skies. This is something, as I mentioned, of biblical proportions. Can you imagine not just rain, but incessant rain, one after the other, going on from June all the way to the end of August, where our water had nowhere to go. Our rivers were too full. Our canals were too full. This is something that I can't that is very difficult to put into words and very difficult to understand until you see with your own eyes. Yes, there are things we should do to brace ourselves, to ready ourselves for these sorts of extreme events. But I don't think that there was any prediction, nor any plan anywhere that could have managed the scale of this catastrophe.